Even before people would enter into my classroom, they knew like Tiffany's classroom is the one, like they'll do identity work, they're gonna talk about racism. There's never like the day, I don't put it on a calendar like today we're gonna talk about racism. Building community, I think, for me has been the foundation of everything I do with my classroom and my students and their families. And it looks like from the first day of school, I'm standing at the door and greeting my students with a handshake and talking with them, but also like looking at their family members who are dropping them off. So we're connected, and it looked like that every day of the week, every day of the year. My classroom looked chaotic. Our door would be open so you could hear us from partway down the hallway. You would see kids preparing snack for their friends. You would see me working alongside a kid, giving a lesson while maybe another one is like snuggled close to me because they had a hard day. Others are like sprawled out on the floor. We would just kind of play a lot of games, especially in the beginning of the year, playing, you know, just like from telephone to full body rock, paper, scissors, or like the school would turn into hot lava and they had to get from my classroom to another classroom safely. The physical space invited them and included them. We're a place where we're having fun, and with the families sending little notes home like, hey, your child said this amazing thing today, or they had a hard time after you left, they were really sad, so we're gonna do this different transition routine. But really staying connected and communicating was really important. It really is a partnership with families. When you don't work on creating that community, when you don't spend time building relationships with the children and the families, like there's no foundation of trust. And if you aren't trusted, then doing the big work of talking about racism and anti-racism, talking about identity and oppression, talking about justice and liberation, that comes, it kind of comes out of nowhere. If you are not talking with the people around you, they're not going to know what your values are. They're not going to know how you do something. And they're also going to be like, why are you the right person to be doing this with my kid? This beginning of the second week of school, I would take all of the books off of our bookshelf and put them in the middle of the rug. And I told my students, I didn't like the way I organized the classroom book collection. I would love for you to organize it. And as you're organizing it, I want you to notice if we have more books that have white kids on the cover. I want you to notice who the authors are. I want you to notice like who we're missing from our book collection. And we would do this every year. So the book collection would change, which was exciting. And then we would do identity maps. And so we would talk about like, what do we know about this kid? What is their skin color? What is their hair like? What is their community like? What do they like to do? And from there, like then we would make our own identity maps. We would talk about ourselves. I would talk about kind of what are the first things you notice about people. You notice their hair, you notice the color of their clothes, you notice their gender expression, and you notice their skin color. A lot of the work I do is based off the framework of anti-bias education, and the first goal of anti-bias education is to know who you are. We start just by looking at, so going through like race is a social construction. It's something that is not natural, and like people have worked really hard to create these categories for people to fit in because they needed to have some people in power, and people wanted to keep their power. They get super outraged by that. I'll pull out some materials, and so I'll have cut up construction paper, black and white construction paper. I'll use the kind of like multiracial skin tone construction paper, and then we have skin tone pencils, markers, paint, regular paint. With the construction paper, we'll hold up the black and white, and I'm like, does anybody in this class have skin color like this? And like we're all like, they put it on their arms or whatever, and we're all like, no. So we're called black and we're called white. This doesn't reflect what our skin looks like. but this is what we're called. And people with darker skin and brown skin like are called black or brown, and people with light skin whose ancestors come from Europe are called white. And then maybe the next day we'll pull out the different like skin tone things, and they're still like looking and they're like, this doesn't match mine. Okay. And we like notice like, this is what people think our skin should look like, but it doesn't really reflect who we are. And as a class, like we're all different, and even like one person has different shades on them. So then we pull out paint and we mix up using skin tone, paint, or just primary colors. We mix up to match our own skin color, and those go in little bottles that we keep all year long. So there are still in many classrooms in the United States and around the world where children are not seeing themselves reflected. So when you have something that is you, and it's just you, like the skin tone paint, and nobody else's, because you created it for yourself, it's based off of who you are, it feels really good. But the kids, they loved it because they loved knowing the information. They loved knowing about the race and how the construction came to be, which is like information that adults rarely tell kids. And they also loved to see how they were similar or how they were different. They loved knowing that their like skin tone base like pretty much came from the same colors. And then they like selfishly, like they loved being able to have these like little bottles that with their name on it that represented them, that they could dig into anytime. Because it is really hard sometimes to see yourself in pencils and markers when you're creating artwork and when you want to be yourself. And sometimes they would share their painting when they were like illustrating a story and they wanted different character colors. They would use each other's with permission. And it was really is just kind of the like really empowering lesson for the kids. They were able to create something that was authentically them. Children who know themselves and love themselves and also know who their friends are in all aspects of their social and personal identities, they can kind of trust the space they're in and trust the people they're around to really do big work, to learn and feel comforted and safe and brave and courageous. For centuries and centuries, we have been divided and we have been told that some folks are inferior and some folks are superior. And that is all a social construction. And if we keep playing into that, then we are not doing the work of recognizing our own humanity. Doing anti-racism work makes us all whole. And without it, we're just totally disjointed, and that's not how we need to be.